Right now, this sentence is reaching you as a swarm of tiny packets, chopped into pieces, scattered across thousands of miles of glass and copper, very likely sent screaming through a cable lying on the floor of an ocean, and then perfectly reassembled on your screen in a fraction of a second. No single person directs this. No central computer runs it. And yet it almost never fails. The internet is the largest machine humanity has ever built, and astonishingly, nobody is actually in charge of it. Let's follow a single message across the planet and see how this miracle actually works. To understand it, we have to go back to a small room in California late at night on the 29th of October 1969. Two computers, hundreds of miles apart, were about to talk to each other for the very first time over a network called ARPANET. A student named Charlie Klein started typing the word log in to log into the distant machine. He typed the L, it arrived. He typed the O, it arrived. He typed the G, and the entire system crashed. So the very first thing ever transmitted across the ancestor of the internet was just two letters, L-O-O, lo. As in, lo and behold, you couldn't write a better opening line if you tried. They fixed the bug about an hour later and sent the full word, but that accidental little message, lo, marks the moment the network age began. From those two computers, the network would grow to connect billions. But the truly radical idea wasn't the cable between them. It was how they sent the data. The old telephone system worked by circuit switching. To make a call, it opened one continuous dedicated wire from end to end and held it open the whole time, even during silence. It was reliable, but wasteful and fragile. Cut the line anywhere, and the whole call dropped dead. For a network meant to be robust, that was a fatal weakness. The breakthrough, developed independently by Paul Bracen in America and Donald Davies in Britain, was packet switching. Instead of one dedicated line, you chop your message into small chunks called packets. You stamp each packet with its destination, and you fling them all into a shared network. Each packet finds its own way across, hop by hop, possibly taking completely different routes, and they're reassembled at the far end. No dedicated wire. No single point of failure. There's a popular myth that the internet was built to survive a nuclear war. That's not quite right. The real motivations were more mundane and more powerful: efficiency and resilience. Packet switching lets thousands of conversations share the same lines at once, and if any link goes down, the packets simply route around the damage. Nobody has to reroute anything by hand. The network heals itself. That self-healing property is the secret to everything that follows. ARPANET grew, but it had a problem. Different networks spoke different languages and couldn't talk to each other. The fix was a universal set of rules, a common tongue every machine could agree on, called TCP/IP. On the 1st of January 1983, ARPANET switched over to it in a single coordinated cutover, remembered as Flag Day. That's the real birthday of the modern internet, the day separate networks became one network of networks. And that phrase is the key to the whole thing. The word internet literally means internetwork, a network of networks. It is not one machine or one company or one place. It's a voluntary agreement between tens of thousands of independent networks run by universities, companies, and governments, who all decide to speak the same protocols and pass each other's traffic. There is no central server, no master switch, no off button, just cooperation all the way down. Now, a confession about the cloud. When we say something lives in the cloud, it sounds soft, weightless, floating somewhere up above us. It is none of those things. The cloud is a lie, a comforting one. It is, in reality, millions of very physical computers in enormous warehouses connected by very physical cables. And the most astonishing of those cables don't run through the sky at all. They run along the bottom of the ocean. Here's a fact that genuinely surprises people. Somewhere around 95% of all intercontinental internet traffic travels through cables lying on the seabed, not satellites. Cables. There are well over 1 million kilometers of fiber optic cable snaking across the ocean floor, linking continent to continent. When you load a website hosted on another continent, your data almost certainly dives beneath the sea and crosses an entire ocean to get there and comes back, before the page even finishes loading. And these world-spanning cables are shockingly delicate. The fibers carrying an entire continent's traffic are bundled into a cable often no thicker than a garden hose. Sharks have been filmed biting them, mistaking the electrical hum for prey. Ship anchors and fishing trawlers sever them by accident. When a major cable breaks, specialized repair ships sail out, haul the cable up from kilometers below, splice it back together by hand, and lower it down again. The global internet is held together, in part, by boats and patience. And we've been at this a long time. The very first transatlantic telegraph cable, laid back in 1858, managed to work for only about 3 weeks before it failed completely. We have been stubbornly wiring the oceans together and watching them break for over a century and a half. Inside those cables, your data travels as pulses of light, flickering on and off billions of times a second. Light is the fastest thing in the universe, but here's the catch. In glass fiber, it slows to about 2/3 of its speed in a vacuum. And that simple fact sets a hard, unbreakable floor on how fast the internet can ever be. You cannot send information faster than light, and physics does not negotiate. Let's make that concrete. The straight line distance from New York to London is about 5,500 kilometers. Even at the speed of light and fiber, a signal needs roughly 28 milliseconds just to make that one-way trip, and the same again to come back. So no matter how much money you spend, a round trip between those cities can never drop below about 55 milliseconds. This is why a video call to the other side of the world has that faint, unavoidable delay. You are, quite literally, bumping into the speed of light. So, the internet is a planet-sized web of physical cables and humming warehouses. The question is, how does a message find its way through all of it, with nobody steering? To answer that, let's shrink down and follow a single request, the moment you click a link, all the way from your fingertip to a server on the far side of the world and back. This is the journey of a packet. First, every device on the internet needs an address, so the data knows where to go. That's the IP address, the Internet Protocol address. The older style, version 4, is 4 small numbers separated by dots, and each one is really just a pattern of 32 ones and zeros under the hood. It works like a postal address for your machine, a unique label that routers around the world know how to deliver to. But 32 bits only allows about 4.3 billion unique addresses. In the early days it felt infinite. Then phones, laptops, watches, doorbells, and light bulbs all came online, and we simply ran out. The fix is version 6, which uses a vastly larger address, enough for roughly 340 undecillion devices. That's a 340 followed by 36 zeros, comfortably enough to give every grain of sand on Earth its own address many times over. So how did every gadget in your home get online while the world was running out of addresses? A clever trick called NAT, Network Address Translation. Your home router holds a single public address that faces the internet. Inside, your phone, laptop, and TV get private addresses that only exist on your home network. The router quietly translates between the two, juggling all your devices behind that one public face. To the wider internet, your whole house looks like a single machine. But you don't type those numbers, do you? You type a name, like a website. Computers route by numbers, but humans think in names, so we need a translator, and that's DNS, the domain name system. It's the phone book of the internet, an enormous, distributed directory whose only job is to turn the name you typed into the numeric address your computer can actually route to. And it does it billions of times a second. When you ask for a name, your computer asks a resolver, which goes on a little scavenger hunt. It asks a root server, which points it toward the servers responsible for endings like .com. Those pointed to the servers for the specific domain, and those finally hand back the actual address. It sounds slow, but it happens in milliseconds, and the answers are cached at every step, so the next person asking gets it almost instantly. That caching does a staggering amount of quiet work. The vast majority of name lookups never travel far at all, because the answer is already remembered somewhere close by, often on your internet provider's servers, and sometimes right there on your own machine. And here's a lovely detail. This entire global name system hangs off just 13 logical root server addresses at the very top. 13. But don't picture 13 lonely machines. Through a trick called Anycast, those few addresses are mirrored across hundreds of physical servers scattered around the globe, so whichever one is closest answers you. A tiny, ancient-looking number, holding up the entire naming of the modern web. Now we have an address to aim for. But before our data leaves, it gets dressed for the journey, in layers. Networking is built as a stack of layers, each one handling a single job and not caring how the others work. At the top is your application, the website or app. Below it, a transport layer that manages the conversation. Below that, the internet layer that handles addressing and routing. And at the bottom, the physical link that actually pushes bits down the wire. As your data travels down this stack, each layer wraps it in its own header, like sealing a letter inside envelope after envelope. The transport layer adds a header saying which conversation this belongs to. The internet layer adds the source and destination addresses. The link layer adds the details for the very next hop. By the time your data hits the wire, it's a neat little bundle of nested envelopes, and each router along the way only needs to read the outer one to know what to do next. Remember, this bundle isn't sent as one big blob. It's broken into many small packets, and this is where the magic of packet switching comes alive. Each packet is launched into the network independently. They can take different paths, arrive out of order, and yet still end up in the right place. If one road is congested or broken, later packets simply flow around it. The message is a convoy that splits up, races through different streets, and regroups at the destination. So how does each packet find its way? Through routers, the traffic intersections of the internet. Here's the mind-bending part. No single router knows the full path to the destination. Each one only knows one thing, which neighbor to forward the packet to in order to get it a little closer. The packet is passed from router to router, each making a tiny local decision, and out of millions of these little handoffs, a global path emerges. Nobody planned it. It just happens. But how do routers know which neighbor gets a packet closer? They gossip. Using a protocol called BGP, the big networks of the internet constantly announce to each other which addresses they can reach, building up a living, ever-changing map of the entire internet. It is, remarkably, a system built almost entirely on trust. When a network announces I can reach these addresses, its neighbors mostly just believe it. And that trust is both the internet's great strength and one of its scariest weaknesses. How scary? In 2008, an internet provider in Pakistan tried to block one video site inside its own borders and accidentally announced to the entire world that it was the correct route for that site. Networks everywhere believed the announcement, and the site went dark globally for hours. And in 2021, a single faulty configuration update withdrew a giant company's roots from this map, and its apps, used by billions, simply vanished from the internet for hours. One bad announcement, and you disappear. The failure that day was so total that employees reportedly couldn't even badge into their own office doors, because the door security depended on the very network that had just erased itself. That's how deep this invisible plumbing actually runs beneath everything we do. The beautiful thing is, you can watch this hop-by-hop journey yourself. There's a tool called traceroute that pings each router along the path and reports back. Run it, and you'll see your packet's actual itinerary, your home router, then your internet provider, then a series of unfamiliar machines in distant cities, each one a real intersection your data passes through. It's the closest thing we have to a live map of a packet crossing the world. So far, packets just get flung out and hope for the best. That's fine for some things, but if you're loading a web page or downloading a file, you need every byte in the right order with nothing missing. That guarantee is the job of TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol. And before it sends a single byte of your data, it performs a little ritual to make sure the other side is listening, the three-way handshake. It goes like this. Your computer sends a packet that says, in effect, "Can we talk?" The server replies, "Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?" And your computer answers, "Yes, let's go." 3 messages, a synchronize, acknowledge, and an acknowledge, and now both sides know the other is ready and listening. Only then does the real data begin to flow. It's the digital equivalent of saying hello, hello, great, before starting a phone call. Once the conversation is open, TCP makes the network reliable on top of an unreliable foundation. It numbers every packet in order. The receiver sends back little acknowledgments saying, got that one, got that one. If a packet goes missing and no acknowledgment comes back, the sender simply sends it again. Packets that arrive out of order are quietly put back in sequence. The underlying network is allowed to lose and scramble things, and TCP patiently cleans up the mess. TCP does one more, almost polite thing, congestion control. When it starts, it sends data slowly, then speeds up as long as packets keep arriving safely. But the instant it detects loss, a sign the network is getting crowded, it backs off and slows down. Every device doing this all at once is what keeps the whole internet from collapsing into a traffic jam. It works because billions of machines all agree to be courteous. The internet runs on good manners. And it's a genuinely beautiful idea. There is no central traffic cop deciding who slows down. Order simply emerges, on its own, from every sender independently watching for the first sign of trouble and voluntarily backing off. A planet-scale system kept stable by nothing more than billions of tiny, simultaneous acts of restraint. But sometimes you don't want all that careful politeness. On a live video call or in a fast-paced game, an old, resent packet is useless. By the time it arrives, the moment is gone. For that, there's a leaner alternative called UDP. It just fires packets off and never looks back. No handshake, no acknowledgments, no resending. You trade reliability for raw speed. TCP is a registered letter with tracking. UDP is shouting across a room and hoping you're heard. One more piece. A single server might run a website, an email service, and a database all at once, sharing one address. So how does an arriving packet know which service it's for? Ports. If the IP address is the street address of a building, a port number is the apartment inside it. The web lives at one well-known port, secure web at another, email at others. The address gets you to the machine, the port gets you to the right program. And because your packets hop across all those untrusted routers in between, anyone along the path could, in principle, read them. That's why the little padlock matters. HTTPS wraps your data in encryption, so even though the routers faithfully pass your packets along, all they see is scrambled nonsense. They can deliver the sealed envelope perfectly without ever being able to open it. The internet was not born private. We had to bolt privacy on layer by layer. Now step back and look at the scale of what we just described. Every single second, the internet carries an amount of data that would have sounded like science fiction a generation ago. Humanity now moves well over 100 zettabytes of data a year, a number with so many zeros it stops meaning anything. And the majority of all that traffic, by a wide margin, isn't email or web pages. It's video. The internet, today, is mostly a machine for streaming moving pictures. To put that in perspective, more video is now uploaded every single day than any one person could watch in several lifetimes, and every last frame of it had to be chopped into packets, addressed, routed, and reassembled across this same invisible web you're using right now. And to move all that video without melting, the internet cheats, beautifully, with something called a content delivery network. Instead of every viewer fetching a video from one distant origin, popular content is copied to thousands of servers placed close to users in cities all over the world. So when you stream a show, it usually comes from a machine just a few miles away, not across an ocean. The speed of light floor we hit earlier? This is how the internet sneaks under it, by keeping a copy nearby. It's also why a single show watched by tens of millions of people at the same moment doesn't bring the whole network to its knees. Almost nobody is actually reaching the original source. Each viewer is quietly pulling from a copy just down the road, and the real heavy lifting happens close to home where you never see it. Here's a humbling fact that network engineers love. For truly enormous amounts of data, the fastest connection on Earth is still sometimes a truck. A van full of hard drives, driven down a highway, can move more data per hour than almost any internet link. Companies really do ship physical boxes of drives to move petabytes because bandwidth and latency are different things. A truck has terrible latency but staggering bandwidth. Never underestimate the data rate of a vehicle full of disks. Step all the way back, and the strangest thing about the internet is that it has no center, no headquarters, no master control room with a big red button. It's a loose federation of independent networks, agreeing to speak common protocols and pass each other's traffic, held together by published standards, automated gossip, and an enormous amount of mutual trust. By every rule of how fragile complex systems usually are, it should not work this well. And yet, every day, it quietly does. So let's replay the whole journey in one breath. You typed a name. DNS turned it into an address. Your data was wrapped in layered envelopes, chopped into packets, and handed to a router. Those packets hopped from network to network, guided by trust-based gossip, very possibly diving under an ocean, while TCP quietly resent anything that got lost and kept everything in order. The server answered, and the same dance ran in reverse. All of it, in the blink of an eye. The next time a page loads instantly, or a call connects to the other side of the world, it's worth remembering what actually happened. Light raced through glass on the seabed. Thousands of independent machines, owned by strangers who will never meet, cooperated flawlessly for a few thousandths of a second to carry your message and then forgot it ever existed. It started with 2 letters and a crash. It became the nervous system of our entire civilization. The internet isn't magic, and it isn't a single thing you can point to. It's an idea: break everything into packets, give everything an address, agree on the rules, and trust the network to find a way. No center, no owner, no off switch. Just billions of small, polite local decisions adding up to something that feels, for all the world, like one seamless machine. Lo and behold,